him in the respect of going in the set. And I say, hey, Kobe, I'm Andy Bernstein. I'm your team photographer. I put my hand out and he grabs my hand. And you guys probably heard this story, but I'm telling it anyway. And he's looking me straight in the eye. And he said, well, I know who you are. And I'm like, okay, how's that possible? Because we never met before. And he said, well, I had all your posters in my room growing up. So in that instant, I thought, here's a guy who had the presence of mind, actually very polite, very respectful, and studied the posters in his room to the point where you guys probably never seen a photo credit on a poster because it's like microscopic. And the only people who ever read the photo credits on a poster are our fellow photographers because we're all jealous that we didn't take that picture on the poster. So that just told me volumes in that moment.
Hot topics, but we delve into the sport of basketball, what makes the game of hoops so great. So take this question any way you want it. What is your first or favorite basketball memory?
Favorite basketball memory's got to be when the Lakers won the championship in Boston Garden in '85. The moment that the buzzer went off, the leprechaun was officially off their back. And it was just great to see because, to witness history like that. No team had ever beat the Celtics for the finals on the parquet floor. Of course, the Lakers never beat the Celtics in the finals up to that point. That was probably it, number one. Yeah, pretty close.
So let's delve into your photography career. We've had a couple of other photographers, and they have different origin stories of how they got linked in, shooting, basketball photos. So can you discuss your origin story in terms of just getting into this career? It's very unique, and you've had a legendary run.
Well, thank you. I mean, everybody's story is different, but I always like to say, everybody started somewhere. And I started when I was 14. My dad gave me my first camera. And I took to it like a fish to water, as they say. I loved it. I did a lot of photography in high school, went to a big high school in Brooklyn, New York, and then continued at University of Massachusetts we had daily newspaper. So I was the assistant photo editor very early in my freshman year there. But I discovered about halfway through at UMass that I wasn't really learning the craft, the science, the business of photography. So I took a big leap of faith and moved to California. That was a huge thing. I had never lived anywhere except in the East Coast. And it was a fortuitous decision, to say the least. I literally got on a plane during the blizzard of '78. If your listeners aren't familiar with that, you should look it up because before the most recent cold snaps that the East Coast has had, the blizzard of '78 was a 100-year snowstorm. And got on the plane. I remember it was January something, and landed in LA. It was 84 degrees. And I said, this is a no-brainer. Why would I ever go back to that? Anyway, worked my way through Art Center. A lot of ups and downs there. A lot of discouragement, frankly, along the way at my university of choice. I hooked on with some Sports Illustrated photographers as an assistant, and that helped to open some doors and my own sort of, let's just say, persuasive personality kind of helped along the way. And I was in the right place at the right time with Showtime really starting up in full blast in the early 80s. I became the Dodgers team photographer in '84. I was with them for 11 years. Was the first official photographer for the NBA. Was a co-creator of NBA Photos in 1986, and we're celebrating the 40th anniversary of that next year. And was fortunate to be there for almost all of Magic's career. I came in my rookie year was Magic's second year, but of course I was there for all of Kobe's career and just some incredible memories and very, very grateful for a very long 45-year career, 43 years on the court.
And how did you kind of make the connection or decide that you wanted to go in the direction of sports photography? Was that kind of something you already had in your mind when you were getting into photography, or how did you go in that path?
No, great question, Matt. I wanted to be a photojournalist, but honestly, originally when I was in college, I was thinking about being a documentary filmmaker. Then I discovered that most of those guys have to go to war zones at some point. I don't know if that's for me.
I don't blame
and
you.
make something a little less, let's just say, stressful or life-threatening. And I grew up a massive sports fan in New York. Was always the shortest kid on my block, but I loved sports. I played every sport, stickball, of course, basketball in the schoolyard and on the driveway, a lot of street hockey, tackle football, in the snow. I mean, all kinds of stuff. So that was one passion, and photography became my other passion. So when it came time to sort of sit down with myself and say, what am I going to do with this passion and this love for photography? I said, well, I might as well marry it with the other thing that I love so much, which is sports. And it's been the perfect marriage, quite frankly.
And of course, it was when you started on as the first photographer for the NBA. I mean, that's considered the golden age of the NBA by many. The time where, of course, the league rose into prominence. It was kind of the NBA's goal in staffing a photographer to expand. Was that kind of sort of tied to like an early marketing attempt for the league?
Absolutely not. In fact, it's funny, man, that you bring that up because I never really talk about this. I was just starting out. I mean, I graduated from Art Center in January of 81. I was freelancing around trying to get a credential wherever I could to any sport, football, baseball, basketball, hockey, didn't matter. College sports, we have two great, amazing college organizations out here, all sports. And just trying to build a freelance career. And I remember this like it was yesterday. It was beginning of the 82-83 NBA season. And I had become friends with, through being an assistant, I had become friends with the Lakers public relations director, who really liked me, and he liked my photography, and he's given me credentials to come, just shoot games and build my portfolio and maybe sell pictures here and there. And he took me aside one day in early in the season, early in November. He said, Andy, I'm hearing that that we're going to be hosting the NBA All-Star game. I didn't say weekend, I said game because it was a game on a Sunday afternoon in those days. In February, which was February of 83, maybe they might need a photographer. Who knows, And I said, well, who would I talk to back at the league? And he gave me a name of a guy named Porter McKinnon. And I remember I was going back to visit my family for Thanksgiving, and I wrote this guy a letter. We didn't have email, we didn't have DMs, all that stuff. I wrote him the letter, and I explained I was referred to by the Lakers, and perhaps you might need my services, at All-Star. And he said, okay, kid, come in and let's meet on the Friday of Thanksgiving weekend, by the way. And the season is going on. I mean, there are games on that Friday. People were in the office. I think people just took Thursday night off to have dinner. I went in there on the Friday morning, I had my little portfolio, and I looked like I was maybe I looked like I was 17. I don't know. How old was I then? I was like 23, I think. Yeah, something like that, 24. And he just looked at me and he said, your work is very nice. Let me understand something. You live in LA? I said, yeah. So we don't have to travel you, and we don't have to feed you. And would you do the game for us for like, I don't know, $250 or $300 or something? I said, yeah. He says, okay. We didn't even think of, he literally said to me, we didn't even think of having like an official guy because we've never had one. They just pick up somebody they don't. They just never covered it. And so that was my first gig with the NBA. I got to tell you, February, whatever that weekend was, standing there on that Sunday afternoon and, seeing the West team and the East team, and I'm at center court. And I'm going to ask you guys, one of you guys has got to know the answer to this, a trivia question, that what above anything else is the 1983 NBA All-Star Game famous for?
Oh, you might have us here. I don't know. Justin,
Yeah,
do you know?
Trouble. I know.
All right.
Maybe our other co-hosts
here.
Okay, so you guys and all of your listeners and subscribers and have to look this up. It was the most famous rendition of the national anthem ever recorded by Marvin Gaye.
Of course.
5.5 minutes long. That's a whole other story about that. But here I am. I mean, I can picture it now. I'm getting goosebumps. I'm standing at center court. He's singing the national anthem. I got Magic and Kareem and all these guys over here. And I got Larry Bird and the great Celtic guys and Isaiah Thomas and all these guys over there. And I'm thinking, this is unbelievable. I mean, I could see myself doing this for the rest of my life. And thank God I did. But that was the first, and it's a very long-winded answer, Matt. I'm sorry. But it was my first gig with the NBA. And then things really accelerated after that. And the NBA started to really need a lot of photos from a lot of different people besides me. And so we created NBA Photos in '86, which was kind of the central meeting point or central distribution point for all NBA photography across the league, and set the standard which every other league, team, organization, college, whatever has adopted ever since. And was super proud of that. And I'm proud of that because that was a vision that David Stern had to green light an idea, and it's been a great run. 40 years is pretty amazing.
Andy, I want to get into your preparation as it has evolved over the years. Can you walk our audience just through like a day in the life of you shooting a game in terms of what equipment that you have to use, just the challenges that you have to go through, and just kind of perhaps the adrenaline dump afterwards, especially after like an intense game?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, game day, let's say it's a 7:30 game, normal game time in any city, but let's just say LA. My game night starts at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, I'm starting to get myself prepared, getting my gear together, either at home or on the road. Preparation was exactly the same. And I would go down to the arena early. I mean, this changed over the years when I was able to bring in an assistant or two, but when I was doing it myself, I'd get down to the arena at the Forum or the sports arena, or if I was on the road, the latest by 1:30, absolute latest, sometimes earlier, and set up. Sometimes I had to put strobe lights up in the ceiling, but I've spent all that time preparing my remote cameras. I normally carry about 6 Pelican cases, those big hard cases full of equipment. Normally, probably do 5, 6, sometimes 7 remote cameras, in addition to the 3 or 4 cameras that I have in front of me or on my shoulder. And then that all needed to be done and completed by 4:30 to 5 o'clock at the latest, because once the players start arriving, I have to shoot the players arriving. But we can't be setting up and doing all kinds of stuff on the court once they come out to warm up. And then I want to be in the back of the house. I want to be in the locker room, or I want to be, shooting Kobe's private workout or whatever it was. So everything would have to be buttoned up by the latest 5 o'clock. 4:30 was always the time that we shot for. And that would go through the game, and then you have to take it all down after the game. The breakdown took about an hour and a half. And by the time we got home or back to the hotel room, it was, a nice 12, 13-hour day.
And with shooting those games, especially with the Lakers, they have a very unique culture compared to the rest of the NBA. What kind of makes their ambiance and their environment so unique compared to the rest of the league, you think, through your experience?
Well, for many, many years, guys, the Lakers were the only NBA team that didn't wear white at home. They wore gold, right? The Forum colors were purple and gold. And, the LA Kings wore that for a long time, so they changed their colors to silver, black, and white. So already they were different. Plus, the lighting at the Forum back in the day was very theatrical. If you look at old video or old or photos, I like to say old, but photos, vintage photos from those days, it has a spotlighty kind of feel to it. The only 2 arenas that have that feel were the Forum and Madison Square Garden, which actually still has that look. In fact, when the Lakers moved to Staples Center in '99, they tried to use the same lighting that the Clippers and the Kings use. It's the only arena to have 3 professional teams. They actually had 5 professional teams at one point with arena football and the Sparks and WNBA. So they would use the arena lighting, call it the umbrella lighting that all teams use in their arena. And for basketball, they just shut down the outer ones, which are used for hockey. But it's just a sort of a top-down lighting, kind of flat. not very interesting. It kind of lights up the crowd, you know, probably up at that 20 to 30 rows. And the Lakers didn't like it. They said they wanted to go back to the look that they had at the Forum, where the light would really just fall off after the first 5 or 6 rows. And it literally looked like a Broadway stage production. And so they brought in these massive trusses of lighting, of tungsten lighting, which they still use to this day. I'll spend tons of money on it, and they still do. Turn off the arena lights, and they use their own lighting. So then the NBA took a look at that a number of years ago, and they said, you know what, we like that too. So they brought that in for All-Star Weekend. So now when you go to All-Star, it's looking like it's a spot-lit kind of theatrical production, which they got from, I won't say from the Lakers, because the Knicks have been doing that for years as well. But it's a much different atmosphere, you know, and it's very flashy. Of course, you know, Showtime was all about flash. People don't give Pat Riley and the Showtime guys enough credit for being pretty gritty as well. But that's where that whole sort of mystique came from, was how it looked on TV mostly. So, you know, my job was to kind of emulate that, but with strobes, which made it a little more challenging because, you know, the strobes knock out the ambient light for that millisecond that the shutter goes off. But it also added to a little bit of the, I don't know, the architecture and the structure of the photos were just different. They just looked different in those days.
So sounds like that unique lighting that the Lakers and Knicks had pros and cons for you as a photographer working the game.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like there were some things that you had to work around with that lighting, or was it overall a helpful thing? I don't know much about photography, but I know lighting's important.
I liked it because if you think of tungsten light, like you go to a theatrical show or a concert, that lighting is crisp, right? It gives you great highlights and deep shadows, and it makes it, as a photographer, it actually makes it easier to focus on than lighting that's kind of mushy and muddy and doesn't really have highlights to it. And you know, back in those days, we were shooting manual focus, meant you had to focus the camera, didn't do it for you. There was no A setting back in those days. So, you know, if you had the more contrast you had on your subject, the better. You know, if you think about baseball, for example, you know, a nice sunny day with Dodgers in that bright white, it's a lot easier to focus on than a gray uniform at night. You know, really bad lighting, guys, you know, helmets covering their faces, stuff like that. So I think people can get the picture that, so to speak, that the, I guess the more directional and the more theatrical the lighting, actually it made our job as photographers a lot easier.
I have to ask, do you feel that photography has been more impactful to basketball as a sport compared to maybe the other major or popular sports?
Ooh, that's a great question, Matt. You know, I'm biased, of course, because you know, most of my career have been shooting basketball. But, you know, these guys, and it's such a cliche, but they are the greatest athletes on the planet, as a group. I mean, of course, it's great athletes in every sport, but as a collective group, 380 or whatever athletes, they're just amazingly gifted as human beings, you know. And for myself and the other photographers who made our living photographing them, it was like a gift to a photographer to go out for 48 minutes and shoot these guys. And then, of course, when the WNBA started, then we had the added bonus of shooting the women as well, who are also amazing athletes in their own right. So I would probably say yes to that, Matt. I mean, if you were talking to Bruce Bennett instead of me, who's made his living, you know, 50 years shooting NHL hockey, he might have a differing opinion. Maybe Michael Zagaris, who shot a lot of football back in, you know, his heyday, he might say football. But I think, to answer your question, that basketball did lend itself to photography, I think, a little bit more than the other sports.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up hockey, because that's That's really the other sport that comes to mind, is that it's so fast, it's hard for you to catch all the action, and those still frames from the photos kind of help with that.
Yeah.
But on the basketball side, you see how dramatically high like a vertical leap is for some of those athletes. Like you think about, Michael Jordan's free throw dunk in the dunk contest, and that photo just really kind of emphasizes that athleticism that you mentioned.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, that was my photo, by the way. I think you knew that. But you're right. I think it's very important for you guys and your audience to keep in mind that the type of photography that I did to the NBA and the NHL as well depended on using this giant system of flash strobes, which meant that you could only take one picture every 4 seconds. So you're not going a motor drive sequence or pulling out, frame 6 out of 10 frames a second or 12. And it's no like spray and pray, which is what, my friends and photojournalism will say. So the timing, the anticipation, to get the moment captured in one frame was really, really, really a challenge. And it was a challenge that I enjoy. I embraced it. I thought it was, honestly, between the three of us and your audience, I thought it was too easy shooting with a motor drive. It's too easy. I mean, with autofocus on motor drive, I mean, my kid when she was 5 could probably do that. Not to berate my fellow photojournalists, but it was just an added wrinkle to being able to create photos that can really tell the story in one moment in time. And that was the real challenge every single night that I went out to shoot.
Seems like it might take away from some of the thrill of the chase, so to speak, of getting those photos.
Yeah, a little bit. I have a good friend of mine who refuses to drive a car that doesn't have a stick shift because he says, automatic cars, that's not driving. That's just, you might as well be a passenger. And, I can see his point because driving at its core, is interactive with the stick shift. You guys probably didn't learn on stick shift, but I did. And it's different now. You get in the car and it basically drives itself. You just have to turn it on and off and point it in the right direction.
No, super relatable. I miss my stick shift, so
yeah. Right?
Definitely agree.
Yeah.
I want to touch on, Andy, your collaboration with Kobe Bryant for the Mamba Mentality. Can you tell how that came about and just your relationship with him? Heard all sorts of different stories. I guess my main question to you is, what is one misconception that people have of Kobe that is not true that you found out when collaborating with him?
Yeah. Well, I'll start off the first part of your question. I met Kobe as a bright-eyed rookie. He was 18 years old. He had just turned 18. It was Laker Media Day 96. And Media Day, if your listeners don't know, it's the first time, it's the opening of training camp. It's the first time the guys put on their uniform and as a group, they go out and meet the media. That's what we call Media Day, so that the team can bang out as many obligations that they have to sponsors and media and all the things they have to record and all that stuff. You can get all that done in one shot. And that's like a 2-hour period where there's literally stations every 8 to 10 feet around the gym, practice gym, and the players go from one to the next. On the team photographer, also NBA photos guy, have 3 different setups, still photos. And the first setup is a basic headshot, mug shot, whatever you want to call it. Straight blue backgrounds. The photo that is going to be used for that player all year long on TV and media guides and all that stuff. Kobe, a few guys came through, and then Kobe comes in, and I had, heard about this high school phenom the Lakers were able to sign, and I never saw him play. I don't think any of us in that room, honestly, had ever seen this kid play. He came out of suburban Philadelphia, and like any other new guy, traded player or a guy I hadn't met before, a rookie. Before I take his picture, I pay him the respect of going in the set. And I say, "Hey, Kobe, I'm Andy Bernstein. I'm your team photographer." I put my hand out and he grabs my hand. And you guys probably heard this story, but I'm telling it anyway. And he's looking me straight in the eye. And he said, "Well, I know who you are, man." And I'm like, "Okay, how's that possible? Because we never met before." And he said, well, I had all your posters in my room growing up. So in that instant, I thought, here's a guy who like had the presence of mind, actually very polite, very respectful, and studied the posters in his room to the point where you guys probably never have seen a photo credit on a poster because it's like microscopic. And the only people who ever read the photo credits on a poster are our fellow photographers because we're all jealous that we didn't take that picture on the poster, So so that just told me volumes in that moment. And then I just watched him in practice. I watched him during games. And we built this trust. And he had known of my being a student of the game like he was. He'd known of my reputation. Been in the league 13 years at that point with the Showtime Lakers, with Magic, Pat Riley, Jerry West, the bus organization, everybody, as well as the league. So it was kind of a natural. I know he just accepted me into the inner circle because I was already in it. And he was the rookie. Just didn't want to screw that up in any way. And I just wanted to foster that relationship. And he was just a very easy guy to get to know. We had actual like literal conversations, which you don't really have, when you're on the job. He's fascinated with my craft, which I thought was really interesting. I became friends with his parents. And, as he became an NBA champion, a 3-time champion. And then, when Shaq left, he was already a wily veteran. And our relationship was really solid by that point. And when he retired, I just thought about the mountain of photography that I created of him over a 20-year period. That a lot of it had been seen, of course, but a lot of it hadn't been seen. So I proposed a book that was kind of like my greatest hits, plus the unreleased. Like you would see something like my guy Bruce Springsteen just released 83 songs that he'd never released before over his 50-year plus career, right? So he liked the idea, but he didn't like it enough to do it. He wanted to do a book with me that was the book he wanted to do, which became the Mamba Mentality book, which really, guys, was Kobe telling his story about what the Mamba Mentality meant to him and what being the Black Mamba meant to him, and not somebody else's interpretation or as told to or anything. He needed it to come from him and to be illustrated by my photos. So that's it. It's the first part of your question. The second part of the question is very few people actually saw the sort of playful side of him. People used to the Mamba stare and the work ethic, and which is all genuine and 100% true. But he had a fun side to him, a curious side. One of the pillars of the Mamba mentality is being curious, constantly curious. That's how the guy won an Oscar, for God's sake, because he was curious about how did John Williams become such a great composer? All of a sudden they're collaborating and they win an Oscar together. And he had a very fun side to him, a very natural side, a very caring side. Here's a guy, fellas, who literally did a Make-A-Wish meet and greet after every single home game that he played for 20 years. How many people know that? Win, lose, injured, didn't matter. He did a meet and greet after every single game. I mean, that just speaks volumes of the kind of person he was.
No, that's incredible. Andy, thank you very much for spending the time with us. Truly appreciate it. Can you let our audience know where they can find you on social media, where they can catch your podcast, and any upcoming projects you have in the works if you do?
Well, thanks. Yeah, we are about to launch season 8 of my podcast, Legends of Sport, and the marketing. As Shaq would say, it's all about the marketing. So Legends of Sport can be found on Instagram at Legends of Sport, our YouTube channel, simply called Legends of Sport. We have 7 years of probably 260 or so episodes of an archive. You can go back and watch or hear some really great interviews. So season 8 is about to come out on September 2nd. Super excited about that. We're leading off with some episodes that we recorded at NBA Summer League. About to take the show on the road for the 4th year to the Basketball Hall of Fame enshrinement. Those episodes will come out probably, the first one will come out at the end of September into October. Our season lasts about 40 weeks or so. It goes way into the spring. And my photography, the best place to find my photography is on Instagram at ADB Photo Inc. And we do a lot of kind of cross pollination, as I like to say, cross platforming. Now that I'm retired off the court, I'm still very, very active with the photography that I created over the years, and sort of using that as part of the platform on Legends of Sport to get the word out. Well, keep following us. Tell all your friends. It's a really fun. Conversations are always fun. They're always with people that I love to hear their stories. Like you asked me how it all started. Everybody, you guys included, started somewhere. Somebody believed in you. Somebody gave you a break. Somebody gave you some advice. And I love to uncover that, no matter who the person is. So it's a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed speaking with both you guys today. So
Likewise. Of course. Thanks for taking the time, Andy. Truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, fellas.